Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I want to talk about an incident that happened during right after the Phoenix Lights incident of 1997, where basically some guy filmed this, apparently had really good video imagery of the object that everyone was seeing. That thousands of people in Arizona, basically they say 10% of the people living in Arizona saw this gigantic object. Of course, the military denied it later on, saying it was military flares. It was just our own jets flying in formation. That's all it was. But anyway, there was a lot of people on the night of March 13th, 1997, saw this giant object flying over Phoenix. Thousands of people. And of course, back then we didn't have cell phones like we do today. Too bad we didn't, because we might not be. There probably would be no debate anymore. But anyway, there was one gentleman back then who apparently captured this object with his video camera, and the men in black showed up at his house and basically stole the video evidence from him. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And here's an article. It's from Hows and Wise website, written by Vicky Verma. Actually, this person, Vicky Verma, has a lot of different UFO articles on this website, howandwise.com. I will leave the link, and you can check it out for yourself. Anyway, the headline here is, Arizona man filmed huge solid UFO in Phoenix Lights. The MIB took video and the man vanished. And this article was just written this month, published this month. Anyway, on the night of March 13th, 1997, the people of the United States witnessed one of the largest and best-known UFO sightings in history. The UAP phenomenon was observed in the skies over the southwestern states of Arizona and Nevada and the Mexican state of Sonora. According to a Rocky Mountain poll conducted at the time, as well as the commotion that ensued, around 10% of Arizonans claim to have witnessed the incident that is now known as the Phoenix Lights. One of the eyewitnesses, named Richard Curtis from Arizona, claiming to have solid evidence of the incident, contacted local councilwoman Frances Barwood. He vanished following an encounter with MIB and a media revelation. Frances Barwood, a member of the city council, opened an investigation into the incident. Since the military and local authorities had already managed to claim that the lights seen by the eyewitnesses were only flares, her co-workers thought her behavior was ludicrous. Barwood received a call from Richard Curtis a few months later. He said right away that he had extremely detailed footage of the Phoenix Lights, despite being an injured former soldier. He claimed that he had personally captured them using high-quality equipment. Here's a quote from Barwood. He said you could see the shape. He said you could see how big it was in comparison to the surrounding buildings and everything. He described that the lights were gaseous. He was so excited that he had gotten all this on video. That's what Barwood recalled him saying to her. Additionally, Curtis admitted to Barwood that he had no idea who else to call and that he trusted her. Since the majority of the Phoenix Lights video footage up until this point had been merely specks of light on a dark background, Barwood was intrigued by this message. Curtis agreed to provide copies of the footage to Barwood's office after she urged him to do so. However, days passed and she did not receive films either by mail or by courier. I thought he made this up. He didn't have video, all this stuff, she said. A week later, Curtis telephoned Barwood at her house and inquired about her thoughts on the films. Barwood informed him that she had not received them and expressed her amazement. Curtis continued by telling her that following their phone call, 2 men from her workplace stopped up at his home. The 2 similar-looking individuals were fully covered in black, 3-piece black suits, black shoes, black hats, black suitcases, etc. The men were not dressed in jackets or other gear, even though it was fairly chilly outside. It struck Curtis as weird. He asked the men if they were from Barwood's office, and they confirmed it. Then they inquired about the Phoenix Lights videos, specifically to find out if Curtis had copied them. They responded that they would make copies for him themselves when he said he had not been able to. Curtis then handed him his videos, and the 2 men left his house in a black sedan. Barwood informed Curtis that she had no men in her office and that all of her staff were female. I have no idea who these guys were. It sounds so bizarre. Nothing made sense to me, Barwood recalled thinking. All of this infuriated Richard Curtis, who concluded that the authorities had misled him. In an interview with Phoenix TV, he discussed everything that had happened, including the Men in Black visit, and that they took his videos. And shortly after that, when Barwood tried to call Curtis, she discovered that he was not answering. When she got to his apartment, he was not there. But the neighbors informed her that Curtis had supposedly taken a faulty medication and had been transported by ambulance to the hospital. There were no records of Curtis ever being admitted to any Phoenix area hospitals when Barwood started looking for him there. Barwood made the decision to have her phone lines checked by a professional when she questioned how the odd men even knew about the tapes. He visited her house and conducted his tests there. After that, he went outdoors. He wouldn't come back in the house. He came to the back door and said, "No, I'm not coming in." "Yes, your phone is tapped. It's a government tap," she said. Since the middle, well, I just want to stop there for a second. Okay, so basically, what's happened here? Basically, so this guy contacts Barwood and says, Curtis contacts Barwood, says, "Hey, okay, I got these tapes, videotapes, great images, video images of this object that was hovering over Phoenix, and I want to give them to you. I trust you." Okay, so she's waiting around for them. They never show up. And then he calls her up a week later saying, "Well, so what do you think? What do you think of the tapes?" And she goes, "I never get them." So basically, two guys in black suits show up, and they're actually wearing the old style hats too. If there was a video I was watching about this, and actually, if you go to this link, there's a video embedded in there that you could check out that was of this Curtis talking to the local TV station about this. So basically, what happened here? These men in black show up in a black sedan, wearing that the attire that we're all aware of that these men in black usually wear, even up to the fedoras, which actually went out of style back in the 60s. As cars got smaller, those hats became too big, those old fedoras that people would be wearing in the old black and white movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and early 60s. As cars got smaller, those hats went out of style. And here in the late 90s, two guys show up at this guy's house wearing black suits with these old-fashioned black hats and sunglasses, say, "Hey, yeah, we're from Barwood's office. We want those tapes, so we'll give them to her." And then they disappear with the only evidence that he had. That was the only copies of the tapes that he had, and they weren't from her office, as it turned out. And then after all of this hullabaloo, what happens next? This guy disappears. Curtis disappears. He's very upset about everything that happened, and then he disappears. And then Barwood discovers that her phone's being tapped by the government. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll read the rest of the article and then we'll get into it. And it continues here. It says, since the military and authorities insisted that the Phoenix lights were nothing more than flares, Barwood was astounded to learn that someone in the United States government had tapped her phones. Richard Curtis vanished without a trace. It became a worldwide sensation throughout the course of the subsequent months. It was the second biggest case in ufology after Roswell, according to the late Art Bell, host of the syndicated paranormal radio program Coast to Coast AM. The bizarre light show, according to skeptics, was caused by man-made aircraft from Glendale's Luke Air Force Base or other neighboring military installations conducting training drills. The Phoenix lights, according to ufologists, were not of this world. Anyway, there's more to this article, and they have a transcript of these interviews that were conducted on the local TV station at the time. But if you want to check it out, the link will be there for you. So anyway, basically, well, for one thing, let's just get one thing out of the way right now. There's no way that the Phoenix lights were military jets or flares, okay? That's not what they were. That's not what people could. There was thousands of witnesses. People talked about one solid, gigantic object that had strange lights embedded in it, okay? They all saw it. Some, triangular shaped, almost like a V-shaped object, gigantic. And a lot of people saw this. Unfortunately, back then, not everyone had video cameras. It was a lot harder to film something like this. And the other thing is, it would have been at night. It's at night when this thing showed up, so it would have even been more. The footage probably, it would be more. It wouldn't be that good probably. But this guy said he had some good footage, and unfortunately, it was taken away from him. And I guess the question is, who took it away? You know, I've talked about this before in a different podcast within the past couple of months. I know I brought this up, but and I think that Men in Black, there's two sides to this whole thing. I think sometimes there are officials probably working for MJ-12, for instance, that try to cover things up when the need arises. And I also believe that there could possibly be aliens in disguise showing up doing these kind of things. What happened here? I think this is, well, for one thing, Barwood's phone was getting tapped. So I think the government was tapping her phone, right? I'm just wondering about the videotapes, because I don't think the government took the videotapes. I think it was extraterrestrials themselves as Men in Black that took the videotapes. I just don't, to me, I just can't rectify, I just can't accept the idea that these government agents, these Men in Black, would dress up like this with the old style hats, and you know, it just doesn't make sense. An alien that's just not as adept at how humans present themselves, you know, that makes more sense to me. And there's ARC stories of these security type hybrids among us. So somehow, maybe these beings somehow figured out that this guy had these tapes and they wanted to get them back, because these aliens want to keep it a secret too. Not just the military, not the military, the Pentagon wants to keep it secret too. But at the same time, I think the government was paying, when these kind of things happen, right? The government has her phone tapped. This is just my opinion. It doesn't make me right. It's just a possibility, right? It's just speculation. The government has her phone tapped because, you know, they're trying to get information too, to help them, to help the government, right? Because they don't know what's going on with these alien beings either. They don't have any answers. When this giant object shows up over Phoenix, you know, they're all scratching their heads too. That's why they say, oh yeah, it was just flares. You know, because they don't want to say it's obviously it's an object from outer space, right? Because that's obviously what it was, right? The government doesn't want to say that, because then you're going to have a panic on your hands. So that's why but at the same time, the government's trying to investigate this. They're trying to figure out what this alien game is all about. And I think that after this guy's these tapes got stolen, that's when Barwood's phone got tapped by the government, trying to maybe think that maybe these aliens or something might try to contact her, you know, or so they tap her phone because they're trying to figure out this mystery too behind the scenes quietly. So I think that's what might have been going on. I don't think the government, I don't think those guys that showed up in the sedan at this guy's house were government agents. I actually believe that it was more possible that these were alien beings trying to keep that information from the public. Not that the government wouldn't have done that, right? I think the government would do that, right? If they would have known about it. They don't want this kind of stuff to get out either, right? Again, they're basically, I've said this before, I believe what the governments of the world are doing, they're actually helping the aliens by keeping this secret, because that's the aliens want to keep it secret too. But I think sometimes it's actually aliens themselves showing up as these Men in Black. And then sometimes there's agents from secret organizations, secret groups like MJ-12 that show up and handle things. So that's my opinion on that. Doesn't make me right, but that's how I view this.